The Tuesday shift had started like any other. Maya Chen arrived at the Edison at 3:30 in the afternoon, exactly 15 minutes before her shift began, just as she had done 4 days a week for the past 6 years. She changed in the cramped employee bathroom, replacing her worn jeans and faded Northwestern hoodie, a thrift store find from when she still pretended she might go back to school, with the restaurant's required uniform: black slacks, white button-down shirt, black vest. The vest had a small tear near the second button that she'd mended 3 times. She'd asked Tony for a replacement twice this month, but new vests weren't in the budget. In the mirror, Maya practiced her smile. Not too bright, customers found that insincere, not too reserved, that read as unfriendly, just warm enough to suggest she cared about their experience without suggesting she needed their validation. It was a science she'd perfected over thousands of shifts. The dinner rush wouldn't start until 6. But the Edison had a steady stream of early diners, retirees who ate at 4:30, business people grabbing a meal between meetings, tourists who didn't understand Chicago's dining rhythms. Maya preferred the evening crowd. Better tips, and the restaurant's lighting was designed for nighttime, all amber and shadow. In the afternoon light that came through the tall windows, you could see the cracks, the scuff marks on the supposedly vintage hardwood, the slight water stain on the ceiling near the bar that management pretended was intentional patina. "Table assignments are up," Luis called from the kitchen as Maya clocked in. He was the headline cook, a 52-year-old Mexican immigrant who'd been at the Edison since it opened 12 years ago. He'd taught Maya Spanish swear words and showed her how to eat family meal without getting grease on her uniform. "You've got the West section tonight. High roller territory." Maya checked the floor plan. West section meant tables 5 through 9, the booths with the best views of Michigan Avenue, the tables that attracted the biggest checks and, theoretically, the biggest tips. It also meant more pressure. Tony always gave the West section to servers he trusted not to screw up when the millionaires came calling. She grabbed her order pad and headed to the floor. Her first table was a couple celebrating their anniversary, married 42 years. They ordered the prix-fixe menu and asked Maya to take 3 photos of them with different phones. Her second table was a solo diner, reading a paperback thriller, barely acknowledging her existence beyond a nod and pointing at the menu. Her third was a group of young professionals, probably celebrating a promotion, ordering a $100 bottle of wine and using the wrong terms to describe what they wanted. Maya corrected them gently, the way she'd learned to do, making them feel sophisticated rather than ignorant. By 6:15, the restaurant was filling up. The hostess, a 22-year-old named Brianna, who was studying marketing at DePaul, seated a group of 4 men in table 7. Maya knew immediately they were serious money. It wasn't just the suits. Half of Chicago wore expensive suits. It was the way they carried themselves, the casual authority of people who were accustomed to rooms rearranging themselves around their presence. Tony materialized at her elbow. "That's Richard Ashford, Ashford Capital Management. Be perfect." "When am I not?" Maya tried to keep her voice light, but her stomach had already started to knot. "I'm serious, Maya. These guys spend $5 grand a month here. Don't fuck this up." She approached the table with her practiced smile, menus in hand. 3 of the men were already deep in conversation about market projections and acquisition targets. The 4th, Ashford, was scrolling through his phone with the focused intensity of someone for whom every second represented quantifiable value. Maya distributed menus. "Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to the Edison. Can I start you off with something to drink?" One of the men, ruddy-faced, expensive watch, ordered a Macallan 18, neat. Another asked for their wine list. The third requested still water with lemon. Ashford didn't look up. "Sir?" Maya addressed him directly, her voice steady. "Would you like something to drink?" "Whiskey, whatever's good." He still didn't look at her. Maya wanted to ask what he considered good, what flavor profile he preferred, whether he wanted it neat or on ice. But she could read the room. He didn't want consultation. He wanted efficiency. "I'll bring you our Pappy Van Winkle 15-year. That got his attention. He glanced up briefly, assessed her with those pale blue eyes that seemed to calculate worth in milliseconds, then returned to his phone. Fine. She put in the drink order, checked on her other tables, brought warm bread to the anniversary couple, split the check for the young professionals. When she returned to table 7 with their drinks, carrying the expensive whiskey with the care of someone transporting nitroglycerin, the men were discussing a potential investment in a biotech startup. Maya set down the drinks with practiced precision, starting with Ashford. "Pappy Van Winkle, 15-year, sir." Then the others, announcing each drink, making sure every glass was placed exactly where it wouldn't interfere with their papers and tablets and phones. "Ready to order, or would you like a few more minutes?" "We'll order now," the man with the expensive watch said. He ordered the Wagyu ribeye, medium. The second man ordered salmon. The third ordered the seasonal special without asking what it was, a power move that said he trusted the kitchen implicitly or didn't care enough to have an opinion. Ashford closed his menu without having opened it. New York strip, medium rare, nothing fancy. Maya wrote it down, confirmed the sides, and headed to the kitchen. Louise was plating an order when she clipped the ticket to the line. "Table 7 is Ashford Capital," she said quietly. Louise whistled low. Big money, big egos, big tips." Maya tried to sound optimistic. "Or big assholes who tip like shit because they think their presence is payment enough." Louise had been in the service industry long enough to know both types. Maya checked her other tables, refilled water glasses, brought out appetizers. The restaurant's sound system was playing its usual rotation, carefully curated jazz standards meant to evoke sophistication without demanding attention. But then, as she was delivering a Caesar salad to table 6, she heard it. The opening notes of La Vie en Rose, her mother's song. Maya's hands didn't shake as she carried the tray. Not anymore. 6 years slinging plates at the Edison had trained that reflex out of her. But when she approached table 7, the corner booth where Richard Ashford sat with his business associates, something in her chest tightened. She'd served plenty of wealthy customers in downtown Chicago. The Edison attracted them with its Art Deco ambiance and overpriced steaks. But Ashford was different. His face had been on the cover of Forbes last month. Tech mogul, venture capitalist, the kind of man who didn't just have money, he had the power to make or break entire industries. "Your New York strip, sir. Cooked medium rare as requested." Maya set the plate down with practiced precision, her movements economical, professional. The other men at the table, 3 of them, all in tailored suits that probably cost more than her monthly rent, barely acknowledged her existence. "Finally," Ashford muttered, not looking up from his phone. "Thought we'd be waiting all night." Maya's jaw tensed, but she maintained her smile. "Can I get you gentlemen anything else?" That's when she heard it. Faint, barely audible, coming from the bar area, the opening notes of La Vie en Rose. Someone had cued it on the restaurant's sound system. Maya felt her throat constrict. Her mother used to play that song every Sunday morning in their cramped apartment in Pilsen, back when Maya still believed she might actually make it as a singer. "Miss?" One of the men was looking at her now, impatient. "Sorry. No, I'm good. I mean, is there anything else you need?" Ashford finally glanced up, his pale blue eyes assessing her with the kind of casual dismissal reserved for furniture. "We're fine. Just try to be more attentive. We're discussing a $40 million deal here." Maya nodded and turned to leave, but then she heard herself humming. She didn't mean to. It just happened. The way it always did when that song played. her voice following the melody, soft and unconscious. "Excuse me." Ashford's voice cut through the restaurant noise, sharp, authoritative. "Did you just... Are you humming?" Maya froze, her back to the table. The conversations at nearby booths seemed to quiet. She turned slowly. "I apologize. I didn't realize..." No. Ashford leaned back in his seat, and something cruel flickered across his face. A smile that wasn't really a smile. "Please, don't stop on our account. You clearly have something you want to express." The other men chuckled. Maya felt heat rising up her neck. "It's nothing. I'm sorry if I..." "You know what?" Ashford interrupted, pulling out his wallet. He extracted a $100 bill and placed it on the table. "I'll tell you what. If you can actually sing, I mean really sing, not just hum while you're bringing someone their dinner, I'll give you this. Hell, I'll give you $1,000. He paused, letting the amount hang in the air. "But you have to prove you're worth listening to, right here, right now." Maya's face burned. Around them, other diners had stopped eating. The Edison's normally subdued atmosphere was electric, with second-hand embarrassment and morbid curiosity. She could see Tony, the manager, heading toward them from across the restaurant, his expression alarmed. "Sir, I don't think..." "What's wrong?" Ashford leaned forward. "Don't you want the money? That's probably what you make in a week, right?" His associates laughed again, and Maya understood with sudden clarity that this wasn't about her voice or the music. This was entertainment for him. She was entertainment. A momentary distraction during his important business dinner. "Mr. Ashford," Tony had arrived, his voice placating. "I apologize for any disturbance. Maya, perhaps you should..." "No." The word came out stronger than Maya intended. She looked directly at Ashford, and for the first time in 6 years of serving tables, she let her mask slip. "I don't need your $1,000, and I don't need to prove anything to you." The restaurant had gone completely silent now. Maya could hear her own heartbeat, feel the weight of dozens of eyes on her. Ashford's smile faded. "Excuse me. You heard me." Maya's voice was steady, but inside she was screaming at herself to stop, to apologize, to save her job. "I've been singing since I was 6 years old. I've trained with some of the best vocal coaches in Chicago. I've performed at the Civic Opera House, at Millennium Park, at venues you've probably never even heard of. And you know what? You're right. I am just a waitress. But at least I don't need to humiliate people to feel important." The silence that followed was suffocating. Tony's face had gone pale. Ashford's expression shifted from surprise to something darker, a cold, calculated fury. "You just made a very expensive mistake," Ashford said quietly. He stood up, his associates following suit. "Tony, is it? You might want to reconsider your hiring practices. This kind of behavior," he gestured dismissively at Maya, "reflects poorly on your establishment. Mr. Ashford, please let me..." Tony began, but Ashford was already walking toward the exit, his entourage trailing behind him. Maya stood there, her chest heaving, watching them leave. The other diners slowly returned to their meals, conversations resuming in hushed tones. She felt Tony's hand on her elbow, firm but not unkind. "My office, now." The walk to the back felt like a funeral march. Maya passed the kitchen, where Luis, the line cook, gave her a sympathetic look, past the employee bathroom where she'd cried 3 times last month when tips were bad and rent was due, into Tony's cramped office that smelled like old coffee and disappointment. "Sit down, Maya." She sat. Tony didn't. He paced behind his desk, running his hand through his thinning hair. 6 years, he said finally. "You've been here 6 years. Never late, never a complaint. Good with customers, good with the other staff." "Tony, but you just told off Richard Ashford. Do you understand who that man is? He owns half the buildings in the Loop. His friends come here every week. He's already texted me. Twice." Tony showed her his phone screen. Maya couldn't read the messages, but she could imagine their content. "I know I shouldn't have. He's demanding I fire you." The words hung between them. Maya felt something inside her crack. Not break, not yet, but crack, like ice in spring, ready to give way. "And I have to." Tony sat down heavily. "I don't want to, but I can't afford to lose his business. You understand that, right?" Maya understood. She understood that 6 years of double shifts and sore feet and forced smiles had just evaporated because she'd had one moment of dignity, one moment where she'd refused to be small. "When?" she asked. "Tonight. Finish your shift, collect your tips. I'll make sure you get 2 weeks severance." He paused. "I'm sorry, Maya, I really am." She walked out of his office in a daze. The rest of her shift passed in a blur, taking orders, delivering food, clearing tables. No one met her eyes. They all knew. By the time she counted her tips at midnight, $234, her best Tuesday in months, her hands were finally shaking. The train ride back to her apartment in Logan Square took 40 minutes. Maya stared at her reflection in the dark window, a ghost of herself superimposed over the passing city. She thought about calling her mother, but it was too late. Her mother would just worry, would ask her what she was going to do now, how she'd pay rent, whether she'd finally give up on this singing fantasy and go back to school, get a real degree, find a stable job with benefits. When Maya finally unlocked the door to her studio apartment, 350 square feet of carefully organized survival, she saw the acceptance letter on her desk. It had arrived 2 weeks ago, the winter showcase at the Chicago Music Exchange. A chance to perform for industry professionals, agents, producers. A chance she couldn't afford to take because the participation fee was $1,500 and she'd been saving every extra dollar for rent after her hours got cut last month. She picked up the letter, read it again for the 20th time, then set it down. Then she picked up her phone and did something she'd sworn she'd never do. She opened her banking app, navigated to her savings account, the one she'd been building for 4 years, the one that was supposed to be for emergencies only, and looked at the balance, $3,200. Maya closed her eyes. She could hear her mother's voice. "Be practical, Misha. Dreams don't pay bills." She could hear her voice teacher from Berkeley before she'd had to drop out. "You have a gift, Maya. Don't waste it." She could hear Richard Ashford's mocking tone. "Prove you're worth listening to." She transferred $1,500. The confirmation appeared on her screen. Maya sat on her bed, which was also her couch, which was also her dining area in this city that devoured dreamers. And for the first time since she was 6 years old, and her father left, and her mother stopped singing, Maya Chen cried. Not from sadness, from terror, because she'd just bet everything she had on a voice no one wanted to hear. The morning arrived with the particular cruelty of a Chicago November. Grey, biting, indifferent. Maya woke at 6:30 out of habit, her body still calibrated to opening shifts that no longer existed. For a moment, in the space between sleep and consciousness, she forgot. Then reality crashed back. Unemployed, $1,500 poorer, and exactly 3 weeks away from a performance that might change her life or confirm her worst fears about herself. Her phone showed 7 missed calls from her mother and 3 texts from her roommate, who wasn't really her roommate anymore. Jenna had moved in last year to help split the rent, then moved out 6 months ago when her consulting job transferred her to Austin. Maya had been covering the full $1,200 a month since then, and it was killing her slowly. The texts from Jenna were sympathetic but useless. "Saw the video, you okay? That guy is a dick. Call me if you need anything." As if calling someone in Austin could solve the problem of rent due in 2 weeks or groceries that wouldn't buy themselves. Maya ignored the calls and opened her email instead. The Chicago Music Exchange had sent a confirmation. Her performance slot was set for December 15th, 8 p.m., 3 weeks to prepare, 3 weeks to justify destroying her safety net. The apartment felt smaller in daylight. Maya had lived here for 4 years, and in that time it had become less a home and more a storage unit for deferred dreams. The keyboard in the corner, a Yamaha she'd bought used when she still thought she'd make it, was covered with a week's worth of laundry. Her music theory textbooks from Berkeley gathered dust on the shelf, bookmarking a chapter of her life she'd had to abandon when the money ran out. She got up and made coffee with the last of her ground beans, mentally calculating how long she could stretch her pantry supplies before she'd have to spend money on groceries. Rice, beans, pasta, the college student diet, except she was 28, and this wasn't temporary anymore. This was her life. The video had gone viral overnight. Maya finally forced herself to look. Someone had posted it with the title, "Waitress destroys billionaire CEO at fancy restaurant," with 3 fire emojis and a skull. The comments section was a battlefield. She's got guts. Respect. This is why you stay in your lane. Now she's unemployed. Ashford is a known asshole. Someone needed to check him. Imagine being this entitled. You're a waitress. Do your job. I'd hire her just for that energy. Maya closed the app before she could read more. The internet's opinion didn't matter. The internet wasn't going to pay her rent. Her phone buzzed. Her mother again. Maya answered this time. Finally. Her mother's voice carried the particular strain of someone who'd been awake for hours, worrying. "I've been calling since 7. What happened?" "Mom, Tonya from church said her daughter saw something on Instagram, some video from the Edison. Is it true? Did you really tell off Richard Ashford?" Maya closed her eyes. Of course. In 2024, nothing stayed private. Someone had filmed the confrontation. How bad is it? How bad? Miha, there are 3 different versions trending. One has 50,000 views. People are calling you brave. People are calling you stupid. Her mother's voice cracked. People are right. What were you thinking? I was thinking that I'm tired of being treated like I'm invisible. And now you're unemployed. That's not invisible. That's just foolish. Maya stood up, needing to move, to pace. The apartment was so small that pacing meant walking from the bed to the window, maybe 8 steps. "I got accepted to the winter showcase." Silence. Then, "The one at the Music Exchange." "Yes, the one that cost $1,500. I paid it. I'm performing December 15th. The silence that followed was different, heavier. Maya could picture her mother in the kitchen of the Pilsen apartment where Maya had grown up, the same kitchen where they'd eaten breakfast every morning, where her mother had worked double shifts as a nurse to keep them afloat after the divorce, the same kitchen where Maya had practiced scales while her mother tried to sleep between shifts, where they'd fought about college and money and dreams that didn't pay bills. With what money? My savings. Maya lose Chen. Her mother's voice went quiet, which was worse than yelling. That was your emergency fund. That was your rent money. That was supposed to be for when the car breaks down, or when you get sick, or when... This is an emergency, Mom. I'm 28 years old. I've been working at that restaurant for 6 years. 6 years of my life, waiting for the right moment. Well, maybe this is it. Maybe I needed this to happen. Or maybe you needed to grow up. The words hit like a slap. Maya felt her throat tighten. I'm trying to make something of myself. You were making something of yourself. You had a job. You had income. You had stability. Her mother's voice rose now, frustration overtaking concern. Do you know how many people would kill for stability? I worked 3 jobs to give you opportunities. And you just threw away the one thing that was keeping you safe. Safe isn't living, Mom. Safe is just surviving. And what's wrong with surviving? You think your art makes you special? You think dreaming makes you better than people who work hard and pay their bills? Your father thought he was special too, thought his music was more important than his family. And where is he now? There it was, The comparison Maya had been expecting, had been running from for years. "I'm not Dad." "No, you're worse." He at least had the decency to leave before he destroyed everything. The line went dead. Maya stared at her phone, her mother's last words echoing in the small space. She wanted to call back, to explain, to make her mother understand. But what would she say? That she was different from her father? The evidence suggested otherwise, both of them choosing music over security, both of them disappointing the people who loved them. Maya sat heavily on her bed and let herself cry for exactly 5 minutes. Then she wiped her face, opened her laptop and started looking for work. The job market was brutal. She scrolled through Indeed, LinkedIn, Craigslist. Server positions wanted someone who could start immediately. She couldn't commit to a schedule with coaching sessions coming up. Retail positions paid minimum wage and offered 15 hours a week. Office jobs wanted bachelor's degrees she didn't have and experience in software she'd never used. She applied to 7 positions anyway, knowing her resume, high school diploma, 2 years of Berkeley before dropping out, 6 years as a server, would be filtered out by algorithms before a human ever saw it. By noon, Maya had eaten the last of her cereal with water instead of milk. She'd run out 2 days ago and was staring at her bank account again. $1,700. Rent was due in 12 days. $1,200. That left $500 for food, transportation, utilities, and the undefined category of everything else that can go wrong. Her laptop pinged. An email. The subject line read, "Regarding your performance at the Edison." Maya's heart rate spiked. She clicked it open, expecting, what? Legal action from Ashford? A cease and desist? Some new humiliation? "Dear Ms. Chen, my name is Patricia Vance. I was dining at the Edison last night and witnessed your interaction with Richard Ashford. I was also fortunate enough to hear you humming, and I've since seen the video circulating online. I run a small non-profit called Second Chances Arts, which provides support and resources to working artists in Chicago. We offer mentorship, performance opportunities, and financial assistance to talented individuals who might otherwise fall through the cracks. I'd like to meet with you to discuss your participation in the Winter Showcase and explore how our organization might be able to help. Would you be available for coffee this week? Best regards, Patricia Vance, Executive Director, Second Chances Arts." Maya read the email 3 times. It felt too good to be true, too perfectly timed. In her experience, when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. She Googled Second Chances Arts and found a legitimate website, sparse but professional. Patricia Vance had a LinkedIn profile, 20 years in arts administration, former director of community programs at the Lyric Opera. The organization had a small but active social media presence, photos of workshops and performances, testimonials from artists who'd received support. It looked real. But Maya had also seen enough scams, multi-level marketing schemes disguised as opportunities, talent scouts who charged fees for worthless headshots, to be cautious. Still, what did she have to lose? Her job was already gone. Her savings were already spent. Her mother already thought she was making the biggest mistake of her life. She wrote back before she could overthink it. "Dear Ms. Vance, thank you for reaching out. I'm available to meet whenever works for you. I appreciate your interest and your support. Maya Chen." The response came within 10 minutes. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. at Dollop Coffee on Broadway. I'll be the woman with red glasses and a folder full of possibilities." Maya stared at the message. A folder full of possibilities. It sounded like something from a greeting card, overly optimistic and vaguely condescending, but it was also the first genuinely positive thing that had happened since last night. She spent the rest of the day trying not to think. She cleaned the apartment, did laundry, practiced scales, until her neighbors banged on the wall. She avoided social media, where the video of her confrontation with Ashford had apparently taken on a life of its own. Someone had titled it, "Waitress Destroys Billionaire," with 3 fire emojis. The comments were split between people calling her a hero and people calling her an entitled millennial who didn't understand how the real world worked. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed listening to the sounds of the city through her thin walls, sirens, car alarms, the couple upstairs fighting about money again. She thought about her mother, about her father, about the $1,500 she'd never get back if this didn't work. At 3 a.m., she got up and sat at her keyboard. She played the opening chords of La Vie en Rose, the song that had started everything. Then she began to sing quietly, so as not to wake the neighbors. Her voice filled the small space, and for a moment, just a moment, Maya let herself believe that maybe, possibly, this could work. Dollop Coffee was crowded with the usual Tuesday morning mix. Freelancers, hunched over laptops, young parents with strollers, the voluntarily unemployed nursing single espressos for hours. Maya arrived 10 minutes early and ordered a drip coffee she couldn't afford, then found a table near the window where she could watch for Patricia Vance. She recognized her immediately. Late 50s, red glasses, purposeful stride. Patricia carried a leather portfolio and wore the kind of effortless elegance that came from having money so long you forgot to think about it. She spotted Maya and smiled, warm and genuine. "Maya, Patricia Vance, thank you for meeting me." They shook hands. Patricia's grip was firm, confident. She ordered a cappuccino and a croissant, insisting Maya have one too, despite her protests. "So," Patricia said once they were settled, "tell me about yourself. Not the version you'd put on a resume, the real version." Maya wasn't sure where to start. "I'm a singer. I was studying at Berklee College of Music, but I had to drop out after my sophomore year when the money ran out. I've been working at the Edison. Well, I was working there for 6 years. I perform when I can, but it's mostly small venues, open mics, nothing that pays." "Why singing?" The question caught Maya off guard. Most people asked how or when, but never why. "My mother used to sing," Maya said slowly. "Before my father left, before she had to work all the time. She had this beautiful voice, and she'd sing while cooking, while cleaning, just all the time. After he left, she stopped. Completely. It was like watching someone cut off a part of themselves." Maya paused, surprised by how much she was revealing to a stranger. "I guess I kept singing because she couldn't, or wouldn't." Patricia nodded, making a note in her portfolio. "And the winter showcase. Why now?" "Because I'm running out of time. Because I'm 28 and I'm tired of saying someday, and because—" Maya stopped, then decided honesty was the only currency she had left. "Because I got fired, and I did something stupid and impulsive, and now I have to make it mean something. Watching you stand up to Richard Ashford wasn't stupid." Patricia's expression hardened. "That man has been bullying people in this city for decades. Someone needed to say no to him. It cost me my job, yes, but it also showed everyone who you are, including yourself." Maya didn't know what to say to that. Patricia pulled a folder from her portfolio and slid it across the table. "Here's what I'm offering. Second Chances Arts will cover your participation fee for the winter showcase. I know you've already paid it, so we'll reimburse you. We'll also provide you with 10 sessions with Marcus Reed, one of the best vocal coaches in the Midwest. And we'll connect you with Sarah Kim, a pianist who collaborates with our artists. She'll work with you on your showcase piece." Maya's hands trembled as she opened the folder. Everything Patricia had mentioned was there in neat professional print. It was too much, too generous. "Why?" Maya asked. "Why me?" Patricia took off her red glasses and cleaned them slowly, deliberately. 25 years ago, I was a violinist, Juilliard-trained, technically proficient, completely terrified of failing. I had an audition with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, best opportunity of my life. And the night before, my instructor, a man I trusted, a man I'd studied with for 3 years, told me I wasn't good enough. that I should save myself the embarrassment. She put her glasses back on. I believed him. I didn't go to the audition. 6 months later, I found out he'd been having an affair with one of my classmates, a violinist. She got the audition slot I gave up. She's been with the CSO for 23 years now. Maya felt her chest tighten with vicarious anger. I started Second Chances Arts because I don't want other people to give up their moments. I can't perform anymore. Arthritis. She flexed her fingers. But I can do this. I can give people the support I didn't have. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll work your ass off. Say you'll make the most of this opportunity. Maya looked at the folder again. The reimbursement alone would solve her immediate financial crisis. The coaching would give her the preparation she desperately needed, but accepting help felt like admitting she couldn't do it alone. There's one condition, Patricia added. You can't disappear. If you take this support, you commit to staying engaged with our community. You mentor other artists. You pay it forward. I can do that. Then we have a deal. They shook hands again, and Maya felt something shift inside her. Not relief, exactly. More like the acknowledgement of a responsibility she couldn't fail. Over the next 2 weeks, Maya's life transformed. Marcus Reed turned out to be a 60-year-old former opera singer with a booming laugh and zero tolerance for half-effort. Their sessions were brutal, technical, exhausting. He made her sing scales until her throat ached, broke down her breathing technique and rebuilt it, challenged every assumption she had about her own voice. "You're talented," he told her after their 5th session, "but talent is common, discipline is rare. And discipline without joy is just suffering. You need to find the joy again, Maya. When did you stop singing because you loved it and start singing because you needed to prove something?" The question haunted her. Sarah Kim, the pianist, was younger, maybe 30, with dyed purple hair and a quiet intensity. She listened to Maya sing La Vie en Rose once, then said, "That's not your song." "What do you mean? I've been singing it for years." "Exactly. You're singing it because it's safe, because it's what your mother sang, but it's not yours. What do you want to say, Maya? Not what do you want to sing. What do you want to say?" They spent an entire session just talking about Maya's father, about her mother's silence, about the weight of expectations and the fear of becoming irrelevant. And then Sarah played something, a modern arrangement of Both Sides Now, Joni Mitchell's meditation on change and loss, and seeing things clearly, finally, too late. "Try this," Sarah said. Maya sang it and something broke open in her chest. By the time she reached the final verse, tears were streaming down her face. "That's your song," Sarah said quietly, but as the showcase approached, Maya's anxiety intensified. The video of her confrontation with Ashford had been viewed over 200,000 times. People had opinions. A podcast called Chicago Unfiltered had discussed her for 20 minutes, debating whether she'd been brave or foolish. Someone had created a meme with her face and the caption, "When you choose violence over rent money." Worse, Richard Ashford hadn't stayed silent. He'd given an interview to Crane's Chicago Business, carefully worded but damning. "Cancel culture has made it impossible to expect basic professional courtesy. That incident at the Edison was unfortunate. I hope the young woman involved learns that actions have consequences." The article mentioned that Ashford Capital Management had pulled their monthly corporate dinners from the Edison. Maya felt sick with guilt. How many servers would lose hours because of her? How many people were paying for her moment of pride? Then, 3 days before the showcase, her mother showed up. Maya was at home, practicing with Sarah when the doorbell rang. She opened it to find her mother standing in the hallway, holding a small suitcase and looking older than Maya remembered. "Mom, what are you—" "I came to hear you sing." The words hung between them. Sarah, sensing the moment, quickly packed up. "I'll see you tomorrow for our final run-through." When they were alone, Maya's mother walked slowly around the tiny apartment, taking in the keyboard, the stacks of sheet music, the acceptance letter from the winter showcase still pinned to the wall. "You really did it," her mother said softly. "You paid the fee. You're performing." "I had help." Maya explained about Patricia Vance and Second Chances Arts, about the coaching, the reimbursement. Her mother sat heavily on the bed. "I owe you an apology." "Mom, let me finish." She looked up at Maya with red-rimmed eyes. "When I told you to be practical, when I compared you to your father, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to protect you. I've spent 22 years watching you love something that might break your heart. It's terrifying. I know. But I was wrong. You're not your father. You've never been irresponsible or selfish. You've worked harder than anyone I know. And I stopped singing because it hurt too much after he left. It reminded me of everything I'd lost. But watching you fight for this, watching you risk everything." Her voice cracked. "You reminded me what it feels like to want something badly enough to be brave." Maya sat beside her mother on the bed, and they stayed like that for a long time, not speaking, just breathing together in the small space that held all of Maya's fragile hopes. "Will you come?" Maya asked finally. "To the showcase. I wouldn't miss it for anything." That night, Maya had a dream. She was 6 years old again, standing in the kitchen of their old apartment. Her mother was singing La Vie en Rose, and her father was playing guitar, and Maya was spinning in circles, dizzy with joy. Then the music stopped. Her father packed his guitar and walked out the door. Her mother's voice disappeared, and Maya kept spinning, alone, trying to remember the melody. She woke up at 4 a.m., her heart pounding. 3 days until the showcase. 3 days until she'd have to stand on a stage and prove that the last 6 years, the last $1,500, the last 22 years of carrying her mother's broken dreams and her father's abandoned ambitions meant something. The Chicago Music Exchange was smaller than Maya had imagined. She'd pictured something grand, a concert hall with soaring ceilings and perfect acoustics. Instead, she found herself in a converted warehouse in Pilsen, the same neighborhood where she'd grown up. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd spent years trying to escape this place, and here she was, performing for her future in the shadow of her past. The showcase was structured simply, 12 performers, each given 15 minutes. Industry professionals would be scattered throughout the audience. Agents, producers, artistic directors from various companies. No judges, no scores, just the chance to be seen by people who mattered. Maya arrived 2 hours early. The venue was already alive with nervous energy. Other performers ran through vocal exercises in corners, adjusted their sheet music, paced. She recognized a few faces from the Chicago music scene. A tenor who sang at weddings, a jazz vocalist who performed at the Green Mill, a classical soprano fresh out of Northwestern. Patricia Vance found her backstage. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified." "Good. Terror means you care." Patricia handed her a bottle of water. "Marcus and Sarah are in the audience. Your mother's in the 3rd row." And she paused. "Richard Ashford is here." Maya's stomach dropped. "What?" "He bought a ticket this morning. I thought you should know." The news felt like a physical blow. Of course he was here. This was his city, his world. Maya was the interloper. "Hey!" Patricia gripped her shoulder. "You belong here. Remember that. Whatever happens tonight, you earned this moment." Sarah found her 20 minutes before showtime. They ran through the arrangement one final time in a small practice room, Sarah's purple hair catching the fluorescent light. "You ready?" Sarah asked when they finished. "I don't know." That's the only honest answer. Sarah smiled. "I've accompanied hundreds of singers. You know what makes the great ones great? They're not fearless. They're just willing to be afraid in front of people. That's courage, Maya, not the absence of fear, but the willingness to feel it and sing anyway. Maya was 8th in the lineup. She sat in the wings and watched the other performers, each one talented, each one desperate in their own way. The jazz vocalist nailed her Ella Fitzgerald tribute. The tenor brought the audience to tears with Nessun Dorma. These weren't amateurs. They were serious musicians, and Maya was competing with them for the same scarce opportunities. When her name was called, Maya walked onto the stage with her mother's advice echoing in her head. Shoulders back, eyes up. Remember who you are. The lights were harsh, bright. She couldn't see the audience clearly, but she knew they were there, 200 people who would decide her worth in the next 15 minutes. She knew her mother was watching. She knew Richard Ashford was watching. Sarah settled at the piano, played the opening chord, and Maya began to sing. She'd chosen both sides now for its honesty. The song was about illusions and disillusionment, about seeing things clearly only after you've lost them. Maya sang about clouds and love and life, about the distance between what we dream and what we get. Her voice filled the space, not with technical perfection, though Marcus had drilled that into her, but with emotional truth. She wasn't singing to prove anything to Richard Ashford. She wasn't singing to make her mother proud, or to vindicate her choice, or to justify the $1,500. She was singing because this was the only way she knew how to tell the truth about her life. The loneliness of chasing something beautiful, while everyone told you to be realistic, the ache of wanting more than survival, the terror of being seen and the greater terror of staying invisible. When she finished, the silence lasted 3 heartbeats. Then the applause came, warm, sustained, genuine. Maya bowed, thanked Sarah, and walked off stage with her legs shaking. Patricia was waiting in the wings, tears streaming down her face. That was extraordinary. Maya couldn't speak. She felt hollowed out, emptied. Sarah hugged her, then guided her to a quiet corner backstage. The rest of the showcase passed in a blur. Maya changed into street clothes, tried to calm her racing heart, avoided looking at her phone. When the final performer finished, all 12 of them were called back on stage for a group bow. The audience rose to their feet. Afterward, in the venue's lobby, Maya was surrounded. Other performers congratulated her. Strangers asked for her contact information. Her mother pushed through the crowd and held her without speaking, and Maya felt the years of distance between them collapse into that embrace. Then she saw him. Richard Ashford, standing at the edge of the lobby watching her with an expression she couldn't read. He approached slowly, deliberately. The crowd seemed to sense the tension and parted. "Ms. Chen." He stopped a respectful distance away. That was remarkable. Maya's guard went up immediately. "Thank you. I owe you an apology." The words sounded foreign in his mouth, as if he'd never spoken them before. "What I did at the Edison was inappropriate, cruel. I humiliated you for my own entertainment, and I'm sorry." The lobby had gone quiet. People were watching, recording. Maya understood this moment would be online within minutes, dissected and analyzed. "Why are you here?" she asked. "Honestly, because I couldn't stop thinking about what you said. That you didn't need to prove anything to me. You were right, but watching you perform tonight, I realized you were also wrong." Maya felt her jaw tighten. "How so? You do have something to prove, not to me, to yourself. And you just did." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "I'd like to fund your career, formally, through Ashford Capital's Arts Initiative. It's a grant program for emerging artists. Full year of support, living expenses, coaching, performance opportunities, no strings attached." Maya stared at the card. It felt like a trap. "I don't want your money. I'm not offering it to you personally. I'm offering it through the foundation. You'd apply like anyone else, but I wanted you to know the opportunity exists." He paused. I've been called many things, Ms. Chen. Ruthless, difficult, arrogant, all accurate. But I'm not stupid. You have genuine talent. Wasting it because of pride, yours or mine, would be a tragedy. Maya looked at her mother, who gave her the smallest nod. Then at Patricia, who mouthed, "Your choice." "I'll consider it," Maya said finally. "But I'm not making any decisions tonight." "Fair enough." Ashford nodded and turned to leave, then stopped. "For what it's worth, you were right about something else. I do need to feel important. I've spent my entire life building things, acquiring things, controlling things, and somewhere along the way, I forgot how to just listen. You reminded me, so thank you." He left without waiting for a response. The rest of the evening blurred together. Conversations with industry people, exchanged business cards, promises to follow up. An agent from a Chicago talent firm wanted to represent her. The artistic director from a small opera company in Milwaukee offered her a role in their spring production. A music producer asked if she'd ever considered recording. By the time Maya made it home at 1 a.m., her phone had 64 new contacts, and her email had 27 messages. She sat on her bed, which was also her couch, and looked around the tiny apartment that had witnessed so many small defeats and desperate hopes. Then she opened her laptop and started writing responses. To the agent, to the artistic director, to the producer, not accepting everything, she'd learned that much, but exploring, asking questions, keeping doors open. She also opened a new document and started drafting an application for Ashford Capital's arts grant. She might not submit it, but she wanted the option. At 3 a.m., her mother knocked softly on the door. "Can't sleep either?" Maya asked. Her mother sat beside her on the bed. "I've been thinking about your father." Maya tensed, but her mother continued. "For 22 years, I've blamed his dreams for destroying our family, but it wasn't the dreams. It was his inability to balance them with responsibility. He wanted everything, the music, the family, the freedom, and when he couldn't have it all, he chose to have nothing. Mom, you're different. You've never run from responsibility. You've worked harder than anyone. And tonight, watching you sing, I finally understood. You're not choosing between dreams and reality. You're trying to build a life where both can exist. Is that possible? I don't know, but I think you're brave enough to find out." They sat together in the small apartment as the city outside began its slow wake to dawn. Maya's phone buzzed with another message. Someone from the audience had tagged her in a video. The clip showed her final verse, her voice filling the converted warehouse, her face raw with emotion. The caption read, "This is what truth sounds like." 3 months later, Maya Chen signed with the Chicago talent agency. She accepted the role in Milwaukee's spring opera season. She applied for the Ashford Capital grant and was accepted, along with 9 other artists. The funding gave her enough to quit searching for restaurant work and focus entirely on music for 1 year. She also started teaching voice lessons twice a week at Second Chances Arts, working with young singers who couldn't afford private coaching. Patricia had been right. Paying it forward wasn't optional, it was essential. Her mother came to every performance, sitting in the 3rd row, always. She'd started singing again too, just in the mornings while making coffee, but it was a start. Maya never saw Richard Ashford again, though she heard through Patricia that he'd attended 2 other showcase events and funded 3 additional artists. Apparently, their confrontation had sparked something. Whether it was genuine change or just good publicity, Maya didn't know. Didn't need to know. She kept the video of that night at the Edison saved on her phone, not as a reminder of humiliation, but as proof that sometimes the moments that break you are the same moments that rebuild you into someone stronger. And she kept singing. Not because she'd proven anything to anyone, but because she'd finally learned what her voice teacher at Berkeley had tried to tell her years ago. The goal wasn't perfection or fame or validation. The goal was truth. The courage to stand in front of people and let them see the complicated, messy, beautiful reality of being human. Some nights, when the loneliness crept in or the doubt returned, Maya would sit at her keyboard and play La Vie en Rose, not her mother's version or Edith Piaf's version, but her own. A version that acknowledged the darkness along with the light, the loss along with the love. And in those moments, in that tiny apartment in Logan Square where dreams went to fight for their survival, Maya Chen sang like someone who'd learned the hardest lesson. That being worth listening to had nothing to do with proving yourself, and everything to do with being brave enough to let yourself be heard. The city outside kept moving, indifferent, relentless, beautiful. And Maya kept singing,